Hi, all. Welcome to the Stewardship Network's monthly webcast. I am really pleased to be back here with you all today. As you all are coming in, welcome, welcome, welcome. Really happy to be here with you all. And I encourage you all to take a moment. Lisa, great to see you. Judith, glad you're here. Jocelyn, so glad you could make it. Clayton, go ahead and drop in the chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from and let us know where you are. Let us know if this is your first Stewardship Network monthly webcast. Really pleased to have you all with us today as we share with Sharon, Farrell, and Amy Mickel the work that they've been doing around collaborative capacity. But I'll just let you all kind of trickle in here for a moment as we kick this off. But go ahead and drop in. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Bob, glad to have you back from Reno. Glad to have you here from Ann Arbor. Thanks for all the back end work that you do. Catherine, really happy to have you here. Sarah, great. Jocelyn, great to have you here from Dexter. Hunter, glad you and Amy are both joining in from Sacramento, Seattle, South Lake Tahoe, Detroit. Wonderful to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. This is a wonderful chance for us to kind of come together as a community of stewardship professionals and volunteers with all kinds of experience. Kevin, great to have you here from Santa Cruz. So go ahead, as you're joining in, go ahead and drop into the chat where you're tuning in from, and let me go ahead and kick it off. Judy, where Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky come together, my home state of Ohio. As Bob said, 17 states and Ontario here today. Again, really happy to have you here from Missoula, Jane. Great to be with you. So let me go ahead and kick this off. You all who have been part of the Stewardship Network's monthly webcast for decades know that this is a great welcoming and open community. So any questions that you have about anything, go ahead and drop it into the chat, and your fellow attendees may be able to answer that. For those of you who are new to the Stewardship Network, we are a 501c3 national and international award-winning nonprofit with a 20-year history. We serve collaboratives from all across the country, strong in the Great Lakes with emerging presences from across the country. Our programs are open to you all, and so we encourage you all to learn a little bit more about us. Go on the website, stewardshipnetwork.org, and find the different programs that are there for you. Our mission is to connect, equip, and mobilize nature's caretakers. So we are here to serve you all in the work that you all do. We connect you by bringing you together in things like these monthly webcasts to equip you with the knowledge that you all have, and we seek to disseminate that as widely as we possibly can. And we remove hurdles for our member communities and people like you, so that you all can be out in your ecosystems, working in the field, doing the work that you do. We mobilize by seeking to make collaborative stewardship as accessible to everybody as possible all across the country. So our connection is one of the things we do each and every month on the second Wednesday are these webcasts, but then we also bring you all together once a year in January for our annual conference that will take place on January 22nd and 23rd in East Lansing. The abstract deadline to submit presentations was last Wednesday, and holy cow, thank you so much for all of the submissions that you have. Now we have the task of figuring out how to put the agenda together. While we have 50% more presentations than we can actually handle. But stay tuned, because the agenda will be coming soon. Last year, many of you all sat with Bob on video and captured the reasons that you attend the conference. And those reasons are kind of knowledge and connection and replenishment. And I want to share with you just a little bit of what some folks are saying about knowledge and how you all
such an enormous and changing field that it is definitely a challenge to stay up to date on all the current information. It's a great place to learn.
I think that the things that I've learned here are very important. You're getting information from academic sources, from people in the private sector, from young students who are coming to you with their brand new research.
I know that there are folks here who are representing their work being done in various parts of the country, but there are a lot of folks who are doing work here in Michigan.
The Stewardship Network Conference covers a wide array of local relevant topics from local relevant experts that specifically resonate with me.
The learning is there, and I think continues to get better every year.
I believe everybody here is willing to learn even more.
So we hope to see many of you there if you're able to make it. Many of you know that we equip you not only with knowledge like these webcasts, but we also equip you with gloves. So our Gloves for Good program has distributed more than 51,000 pounds of gloves, 51 pairs of gloves delivered, which is more than almost 5,000 pounds of waste diverted from landfills, saving nearly 1,700 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions, and saving people more than $132,000 in new gloves that they would have to buy. So I encourage you all to learn a little bit more about them. We ship them all across the country for free, only paying shipping costs, but encourage you to learn about that. And with that, I would like to welcome Amy Mickel, who is our Applied Research Lead, and Sharon Farrell, who's our Special Projects Lead and Strategic Advisor, to the stage to share a little bit about their work. And you may think about, I didn't know that we had an Applied Research Lead, but one of the things that as we think about, even in that video, you saw the kind of knowledge that we disseminate and the research that's there. And as I looked through the abstracts, I've got a whole stack of them that are research, not only practice. So we're really pleased to have Sharon and Amy here today. So thank you both for the work that you do all with us. They will be talking about scaling stewardship outcomes and impact through collaboration and the findings from the field.
Thanks, Lisa. I should be signing up for my gloves as soon as I can. It seems like 51,000. That's awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Really exciting to be able to share some of the findings of the work that Amy and I have been doing. What we hope to do in the next 40 minutes is really go through and provide an introduction and context about the work that we're doing. We've been spending probably most of our shared career that we've been in the last decade working together on finding ways to measure the impact of collaborative stewardship and conservation work. I want to talk a little bit about collaborative specifically as an organizational model, the design components, their life cycle phases. We want to share some of the past frameworks that we're building upon for the work that we're going to be sharing with you for the most part of this presentation, our new impact model, and we want to discuss findings from 2 recent evaluations. Lastly, we'll highlight some implications that we feel that are really important for our field of practice, what's next, and then really dive into hopefully time to answer questions from all of you. Before I begin, however, I do want to note, especially as we talk a lot about working in collaboration, that not all conservation and stewardship efforts require or benefit from collaborative approaches. In some cases, for example, a single organization or an individual might be best suited to carry out specific work, localized stewardship actions. For example, in emergencies, it's often more important to have rapid, decisive action, which makes collaboration in some cases less feasible. So let's kick it off with some broader context. So for me personally, I'm someone who's been working in this field, the field of collaborative stewardship, for 4 decades. I have a lot of experience. I have a lot of learnings. Growth, I would say I've grown a lot as a professional, humility and at sometimes frustration. I've worked at multiple scales. I've served as a collaborative coordinator and mostly sought to understand what does it take to collaborate well? What are the key ingredients? What are the enabling factors? What are the skills needed? What are the systems and infrastructure that we need to create as a field of practice to support the continued evolution of our collaborative stewardship work? I'm not alone on this journey. Probably many of you have been on the same journey. As many practitioners have seen the value and the absolute need to work at the necessary scale for meeting today's most complex social, environmental, and economic challenges. There's been a significant growth that I've observed in the number of local and regional collaboratives across the country in the past 2 decades. Many in response to complex needs such as climate change pressures, detrimental wildfire risk, social and economic needs, and the need to employ multiple benefit approaches at a regional and a larger scale. I'm seeing how these approaches are being more commonly sought and embraced, and how collaborative models are emerging as a distinct way to steward social and ecological systems at scale. This has been demonstrated in practice for many years, and now there's a further growth of research, a body of research that's supporting this. Yet, like many evolving fields, there's much that we can continue to learn. We can benefit from increased research, increased evaluation tools, and the development of systems and infrastructure necessary to operationalize this work. This includes having the essential capacities to perform collaborative work. This shift in focus has evolved with a growing understanding of what it takes to collaborate, the value of collaboration, and we found that the refrain of why should we collaborate is no longer the dominant refrain. Instead, there's new pressing questions that are emerging, primarily focused on the how. How do collaboratives work? How do they differ in their governance, their design, and so much more? How can we better communicate the value, the impacts of collaborative work? And how can we successfully achieve and sustain those collective outcomes we're seeking to do? In the case of funders, policymakers, and those who often resource collaboratives, there are other questions about why invest in collaboration? What can collaboratives accomplish beyond individual organizations? And how do they generate impact? Our upcoming paper seeks to address many of these questions, and today we're going to touch on some. To start with, collaboratives meet the textbook definition of an organizational model. Organizations are often categorized as formal, which tend to be more structured, more durable, or informal, which are less structured and rely on shared authority. Their relationships are more personal and role-related, and they often have unwritten norms. We found that well-resourced collaboratives share the characteristics of both. They have similar capacity needs, just like any type of organization, including nonprofits, for-profits, and government agencies. And we found that well-resourced collaboratives are unique. They embody the adaptable and responsive nature of informal organizations and the durable qualities of formal organizations, often emerging in response to a perceived need, an opportunity, and spanning physical, political, and cultural boundaries. These adaptable and durable organizations are well positioned to address today's most complex and dynamic challenges and opportunities. We use the term collaborative as an umbrella term to describe the different partnership models, coalitions, alliances, networks, etc. Performing stewardship and conservation work, as you all know, in collaboration is not free. Collaboration takes time, it takes investment, it takes commitment, it takes a clear sense of what can be gained by using a collaborative approach. More so, as I just shared, collaboratives require capacities to optimize their potential, like any other type of organization. For example, organizations require management and operational capacities to function. These also apply to the successful functioning of a collaborative. Working as a multi-organizational collaborative also requires what is commonly termed as collaborative capacity, which you can see on the screen. It's additive to the organizational capacities that may already exist with the individual partner organizations. Simply put, collaborative capacity refers to a collaborative's ability to perform its collective purpose and its desired outcomes. Our understanding of how to describe, define, and identify what constitutes collaborative capacity is continuing to evolve. Most practitioners recognize the essential need. However, we struggle to represent the value, the benefits, the impacts of why this capacity is needed and what it enables to the funders and decision makers we are seeking resources from. While many successful regional collaboratives exist, far too many, and we found this throughout our research, lack the sufficient, reliable, and resources to build and sustain the capacities necessary to do their critical work. Similarly, many funders, agencies, and policymakers acknowledge the importance of working collaboratively at scales beyond those individual landowners and organizations, however, have struggled to understand how to resource collaborative capacity, what it is, what should and could be funded, or why and how investments in this capacity is important for yielding on-the-ground outcomes. Recognizing this as both a barrier and a need, A network that I work a lot with, the California Landscape Stewardship Network, and others have invested a lot of time, a lot of resources and social capital over the past decade to support research that helps define and illustrate how collaborative capacity is essential to achieving collaborative stewardship and conservation outcomes. And there are many frameworks and models out there, and we're going to talk about a couple that we've based some of our research on. This shows the collaborative capacity framework that emerged through practitioner surveys, interviews with state and federal leaders, and then was iterated further by regional and national organizations. It outlines the fundable elements of collaborative capacity. Those are found within the triangle that you see. These elements include the capacity needs such as coordination capacity, which is often found through staff, contractors, and partners who can yield that, communications and engagement systems, governance and decision-making structures, the plans that we have to develop and create. The fundable structural elements, they're often referred to collaborative infrastructure. They're held together by what you see on the outside of the triangle. These are called binding elements. They consist of inclusive culture, collaborative mindset, and meaningful relationships. Much like bricks and mortar, one cannot stand without the other, and both the quality and quantity of each all contribute to the success of the collaborative's performance and its function. This framework now grew arms, as you see on the screen, but actually those are arrows. 3 years ago, the California Landscape Stewardship Network hired 2 fellows. I think one might have joined us, Jamie Baxter and Seamus Land, to conduct further research at a national scale focused on what are the activities enabled through those investments of collaborative capacity. This additional research reinforced the framework and also showed how those fundable capacity building elements enabled different activities and outcomes. Additionally, this research illustrates the important contextual factors that affect collaboration and a collaborative's ability to successfully perform its desired activities, such as political will or geography. Amy and I, as I said, have used a lot of these frameworks to basically support the development of what Amy will talk about, our new collaborative capacity impact model. Collaboratives have life cycles, just like any organization. And I think I always knew this in my career, but really now have begun to understand the importance and value of really thinking about this as we design our capacity needs. This graph illustrates the life cycle phases that a collaborative can move through, from its formation phase to the potential phases of renewal or retirement, decline, as you can see. Collaborative capacity is needed in all life cycle stages. For example, in those early stages, a collaborative might need the capacity to establish its collective purpose, some of its strategic direction, its priorities. As it builds and sustains itself, it may need added capacity to scale up fundraising, to develop accounting systems and infrastructure. Coordination capacity, meaning those staff, contractors, partners, whoever, who are able to support the coordination of the collective work. This is essential through all life cycle phases. This was reinforced through all of our research, especially if a collaborative is going to reap the benefits of what we're describing as the life cycle sweet spot. This sweet spot typically occurs between the building and sustaining stages and is where you find the collaborative performing at those optimal levels. Although there's a range of different models, many of you may be part of different ones, there aren't, as we understand it, any definitive frameworks or agreed upon nomenclature for differentiating between them. This is compounded by the fact that many collaboratives have names such as coalition, partnership, network, alliance, association. You're probably very familiar with many of these, that often has a name that doesn't align directly with what the definition of that term means. So rather than using this type of nomenclature, we've integrated key elements of a collaborative's governance structure and other factors to better illustrate the differences and similarities of collaborative models. Together, these 5 design elements include purpose, why the collaborative exists, typically based on a shared understanding of an opportunity, a problem, or a challenge they're seeking to address. Structure, how the partners organize, manage, and coordinate to achieve their collective purpose. For example, a multi-party collaborative may adopt a more adaptable network-based structure that supports broad emergent scope of work, while others may look at a centralized hub model with a focus scope. Composition, who participates in the collaborative. Participation can vary based upon other design elements. For example, a collaborative may choose to have members that are core participants or affiliate partners or project-based partners, how they can best achieve their collective purpose. And this varies over time. Function, a really critical component of design. What are the specific roles the collaborative is seeking to fulfill as it supports its purpose? Is it information sharing? Are those functions capacity building? Are they advocacy oriented? Are they seeking to catalyze change? A collaborative can choose to perform multiple functions, not just focus on one. And processes, how the collaborative communicates, collaborates, makes decisions, from governance structures and agreements to strategies to systems. Together, these 5 design components provide both a lens into understanding how and why a collaborative operates, plus what components must be sustained or adapted to achieve the collaborative's desired conservation and stewardship goals. Many practitioners have shared the need to more clearly describe or measure the impacts of their collaborative work. This is one of the highest priorities also shared by funders and the field of practice as a whole. Here's one example of a model that can be used when we think about measuring collaborative impacts. It was developed by Amy and a colleague, Lee Goldberg, through their 4-year study of a San Francisco-based partnership, One TAM. Their work produced the partnership impact model, which some of you may have some familiarity with, which identifies 3 impact classifications: foundational, operational, and outcome. So that all of what I've talked about leads into this transition, which is the logic model Amy and I used to develop the collaborative capacity impact model. When you roll it all up, collaboration is about the process of people working together toward a shared vision, purpose, or goal. The generation of collaborative impacts also follows a process. At a starting point, we offer this simple model. As you can see in the diagram, if you look to the left, meeting a collaborative capacity's needs, as represented by the orange triangle, enables collaborative activities and outcomes, the blue square, that in turn generates collective impacts, the green circle. Collaborative activities and outcomes can be best described as the direct results enabled by increased collaborative capacity. Impacts differ from activities and outcomes because they indicate changes and shifts over time, and this logic assumes that collaborative capacity needs are met.
Amy, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. Can you see my screen?
Yep, absolutely. All go.
Okay, great. So thank you, Sharon. At this point, we would like to introduce the Collaborative Capacity Impact Model, a new data-driven framework of an interdependent, scalable system of 15 impacts, which are shown in the figure on the left. The figure on the right illustrates process. It shows how these impacts are scaled up, accelerated, and sustained. The Collaborative Capacity Impact Model is an adaptation of the Partnership Impact Model that Sharon already mentioned. A 4th impact classification, which we call integrated, has been added. This addition increases the number of impacts from 11 to 15. Moreover, the vital role of collaborative capacity is represented by the orange color. We're excited about introducing this model because of its practical application. It can be used by individual collaboratives and their partners, networks, funders, and grant programs to describe, assess, and show types of impacts that are generated, scaled up, and accelerated. This model was recently applied to 2 grant program evaluations. the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation's Innovative Nutrient and Sediment Reduction Grant Program, and the Network for Landscape Conservation's Catalyst Fund. The combined evaluations represent grantees affiliated with more than 125 unique collaboratives across the United States. Both programs provide capacity support to collaborative models working towards conserving, restoring, and stewarding large landscapes and seascapes. The National Fish and Wildlife Foundation program, also known as NFWF, was created to advance nutrient and sediment reduction efforts in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, which spans from New York and Pennsylvania, south to West Virginia and Virginia, and east to Delaware, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. In 2018, the program shifted its focus to support collaborative models and their associated capacity needs. The average grant amount was $1 million over 3 years, and NFWF was interested in understanding if and how this shift in investing collaborative capacity generated impact. The Network for Landscape Conservation Catalyst Fund program started in 2019 and also invested in collaborative capacity. Its grant awards were smaller, they were $25,000, and focused on collaboratives across the country. Those serving in key coordination roles were also invited to participate in a 2-year peer learning program. The Catalyst Fund evaluation focused on ways capacity investments better position collaboratives in early development stages to achieve their longer-term goals. For both of these evaluations, a mixed methods approach was used, where we collected quantitative and qualitative data from grantee and non-grantee sources using a range of methods such as surveys, interviews, and focus groups. We use the basic capacity activity framework that Sharon just mentioned to organize our findings. We first focused on capacity by asking coordination leads which capacities the funding helps support. We then categorized them into 6 areas from the collaborative capacity framework that Sharon mentioned. As you can see, coordination capacity was funded most frequently, followed by shared strategies and priorities, and collaborative practices, skills, and tools. In both evaluations, the grantees underscored the value of having flexible funding. They were given the liberty to apply the funds to their most pressing capacity needs. In these grant program evaluations, we also had access to grantees' proposals and their annual reports. Grantees reported accomplishing numerous activities and outcomes which clustered into 2 categories. One's related to collaborative development and functioning, and one's related to collaborative projects and programs. For the Catalyst Fund evaluation, we quantified the number of activities, and this slide shows the percentage of collaboratives engaging in them. For example, almost 80% engaged in activities such as coordinating and convening collaborative partners, followed by strategy setting and planning, and partner relationship building activities. Other activities include those related to communication, fundraising and fiscal administration, systems and infrastructure development, and continuous improvement practices. Project and program-related activities grouped into 12 areas, which are listed in alphabetical order here. These range from fundraising and budget management to project planning, design, implementation, and maintenance, to public awareness, outreach, engagement, and education activities, to workforce development, training, and mentoring. As mentioned by Sharon, activities and outcomes are best described as the direct results enabled by increased collaborative capacity. Impacts differ from activities and outcomes because they indicate changes or shifts over time. For both of these evaluations, the collaborative capacity impact model was used to help classify the impacts grantees generated due to increased capacity. Impacts were classified as 4 types: foundational, operational, outcome, and integrated. The figure on the left depicts foundational impacts as that inner brown circle. The next 2 rungs represent operational and outcome impacts, and the outer green rung reflects integrated impacts. The orange line between them illustrates the capacity needed to generate them. Foundational impacts are those related to enhanced relationships and increased connections. Operational impacts are positive changes supporting collaboratives and their partners to function more effectively. Outcome impacts are characterized as those shifts that move collaboratives towards fulfilling their core purpose. And integrated impacts represent those with long-term effects from institutionalized approaches. We collected survey data from 293 people across the 2 evaluations. In the surveys, we asked questions about relationship building, and we found that relationships were greatly enhanced due to increased capacity. More specifically, 95% of the survey respondents reported increased quality and quantity of connections for collaborative members, partner organizations, local communities, and collaboratives' extended networks. And 92% recorded increased trust among these parties. We describe connectivity and trust as foundational impacts. They're foundational because without healthy, trusting relationships, quality on-the-ground work would likely not happen. For both evaluations, grantees also reported increased creativity and innovation, especially with problem solving and embracing opportunities. And they reported enhanced resource sharing, such as expertise, equipment, and data. They also added capacity by leveraging their grant awards and enhanced cultural awareness and respect among partners, which helped to increase partner member engagement. We refer to these 4 impacts: creativity, resource sharing, added capacity, and cultural awareness and respect as operational, for they are positive changes supporting collaboratives and their partners to function and operate more effectively. Most grant programs focus on this next set of impacts, which we call outcome impacts. They are characterized as those shifts that move collaboratives towards fulfilling their core purpose. These impacts address the question of, do investments in capacity better position collaboratives to make a difference on the ground? Findings from the evaluations support this theme that funding collaborative capacity does influence what happens on the ground. More specifically, 73% of the 293 survey participants reported observing increases in the pace of reaching conservation, restoration, and stewardship goals. 77 reported observing increases in the scale of on-the-ground projects. 82% reported increases in outreach, education, and information sharing programs. It is worth noting that 45% of the survey participants are non-grantees. Examples of other outcome impacts generated by grantees include increased pace and scale of collaborative development to ensure effective operations and functioning, transferable and adaptable approaches, including outreach and training programs, and specific practices related to urban stormwater management or riparian buffers. Broaden perspectives, where grantees described seeing things differently and having a more global or bird's eye view understanding of issues and happenings within a region or across the country. And expanded connectivity, where regional networks are formed and collaboratives are serving as conveners, centralized hubs, and information portals for these networks. The last set of impacts are ones that we described as integrated, and we conceptualize them as the highest level or ideal types of impacts, and they are represented as the outer green rung. The first integrated impact is systems change and adoption. This is reflected in the quote by a NIFWIF grantee. This partnership represents a paradigm shift in attaining voluntary conservation action. The partnership functions as a model for this proven market-driven approach to be disseminated across the state and watershed by other organizations and big businesses. In addition to initiating and integrating processes, practices, and solutions at systems level, grantees are integrating durable and flexible approaches, which could be described as sustainable processes, practices, projects, or programs that could be adapted and refined to meet complexity, evolving situations, and different contexts. For example, one NIFWIF grantee developed a tool that recommends nitrogen application amounts based on site-specific soil and cover crop data that could be used beyond its specific region. Another grantee created a mentorship program for farmers that could be applied to other sectors, and yet another grantee focused on creating a contracting mechanism for state agencies that helps reduce bottlenecks and could be adapted by other state agencies. The third integrated impact is collaborative culture and mindset. This occurs when collaboration as a way of approaching conservation and stewardship work at scale has also become normalized. The fourth is shifts in norms and behaviors. For both grant programs, the important role of relationship building and expanded thinking are two examples of shifts in behaviors and norms among grantees. Remember that this evaluation is predicated on the logic framework that collaborative capacity enables activities and outcomes which generates impacts. Scaling up, accelerating, and sustaining impacts also follows a process. This aspect of the collaborative capacity model shifts from the what to the how impacts are realized. Best management practice implementation on plain sect farms will be used to illustrate the process of acceleration. As many of you may or may not know, Amish and conservative Mennonites make up plain sect farms. These hard-working, community-minded folks have a desire to be set apart from the modern world and have unique restrictions on technology and its use. There are many Amish farms in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, especially in Pennsylvania. NIFWIF made capacity investments in several collaboratives focused on implementing best nutrient and sediment reduction practices on these farms. Represented by the orange ribbon, capacity elements funded by NIFWIF enabled these collaboratives to engage in a range of activities and outcomes, which are represented as the blue ribbon wrapped around the orange ribbon. In this example, increased capacity enabled outreach and relationship building activities for plain sect farmers, which generated new relationships and trust in the collaboratives. Because of this trust, farmers agreed to implement best management practices on their lands, resulting in a pipeline of projects. Grantees described their project waitlist as evidence of scaling up and acceleration of work on the ground, as illustrated by this grantee quote. Landowner outreach has doubled. The INSR funding provided by NIFWIF support for us to engage a new partner to advance landowner outreach. This partnership is seen as a trusted advisor among the farming community. Pipeline projects are now advancing through the project life cycle. Trust was the foundation. NIFWIF funding also enabled outreach for partner expansion and relationship building activities. This fostered new connection and increased trust among partners. Because of sharing resources and leveraging partner expertise, the grantees were able to implement nutrient and sediment reduction practices on these farms at an accelerated pace and scale. Collaboratives were able to lean into what they do best. Collaborative partners. For some partners, that is building relationships with the Amish and Mennonite communities. For others, it was fundraising and budget management. And others, it was providing technical assistance for the planning and implementation of best management practices. In addition, approaches that are durable and flexible, such as outreach strategies and the farmer-to-farmer mentoring programs, have been integrated into other parts of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. These approaches have the potential to be adapted to other sectors and unique communities. This process framework also applies to collaborative development and functioning. In the survey, coordination leads for both grant program evaluations were asked to describe the collaborative's life cycle stage prior to applying for the grant. Individuals representing 93 unique collaboratives responded. 35% reported being in the startup stage, 46% in building stage, and 19% in the sustaining stage. Because of investments in collaborative capacity, collaboratives were able to engage in collaborative development activities that helped advance and transition them to the next life cycle stage. For example, partner outreach and relationship building increased the number of partners and levels of trust among them. Problem identification and multi-benefit solution activities generated creativity and innovation. Fundraising activities added capacity. Information sharing and communication increased resource sharing. Convening and meetings heightened cultural awareness and respect. Activities related to strategy setting and governance systems and infrastructure development and assessments and continuous improvement practices accelerated the pace and scale of collaborative development, in addition to effective and efficient operations and overall collaborative functioning. In this survey, grantees were also asked to describe their collaborative's current life cycle stage after receiving their grants. 2% reported currently being in the startup stage, 33% in building, and 65% in the sustaining stage. This suggests that investments in capacity help collaboratives scale up and accelerate their development and functioning. In essence, capacity investments allow a collaborative to move into its sweet spot where it is performing at optimal levels. This further highlights a key finding that the quality of collaborative functioning and performance are intertwined. I'm going to now turn it back to Sharon to wrap up the presentation.
Sure. Well, thanks everyone for sticking with us. We've got just 2 more slides. We wanted to highlight some of the key takeaways. I mean, firstly, collaborative capacity, as Amy just described, investments should be matched to life cycle needs, and it takes time to do this work. Like any organization, as I said earlier, collaboratives go through developmental stages, the startup, the building, sustaining. Each of those require different kinds of investment to optimize their performance, and there is no one-size-fits-all approach. There are commonalities to each of these stages, and these can be targeted through strategic investments. The second, and for me, perhaps one of the more exciting ones, because I've seen this in my work, collaborative performance is intertwined with achieving and accelerating and sustaining stewardship outcomes. There is a distinctive relationship. And until recently, investments in collaborative capacity and activities and outcomes have often been seen separately. Our recent research, as Amy just highlighted, shows that collaborative functioning and successful performance of outcomes are intertwined. And you need the capacity to ensure that the collaborative is able to operate well and function well to achieve the type of work that is sought. Thirdly, coordination capacity remains essential through collaborative's life cycle. We have learned, both in practice and now further supported through research, that this is essential. As I mentioned, there's no one-size-fits-all to achieving collaborative outcomes and impact. Having flexibility, especially in the funding work, matters. Collaboratives vary across their design elements, their life cycle phase, and are affected by their local and regional context. And lastly, measure what matters. You know, I've worked with so many funders who have the best intentions, and we have struggled as a field of practice because we have a very narrow set of quantitative measures that typically are used to reflect the collaborative work. And they don't assess necessarily the broader collaborative impact. Significant factors and accomplishments such as relationship building, transferability, and increased process efficiencies and effectiveness are not captured through those particular metrics. And so as a field of practice, we can benefit from continuing to expand the metrics we use. What's next, as Amy was just showing, it's an exciting time. The field of collaboration and stewardship is continuing to grow. We continue to learn from each other, especially around how to collaborate, how to work with other sectors and cultures to achieve shared outcomes. And there's a growing awareness that this approach is essential to achieving social, economic, and environmental benefits. And it's coupled now more so with research that is helping further inform our practice, our skill building, our ability building, the communication of impacts, and how to inform and support sustainable funding models. For us specifically, we're seeking to publish the evaluations in partnership with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and the Network for Landscape Conservation. We're also seeking to publish the paper that really goes deeply into the collaborative capacity impact model. That will be in the next 6 weeks or so. And we want to work with many of you to share and socialize the findings more broadly, continue to learn, and develop key messages and tools to further advance this work. And with that, questions. There's a lot in what we've just shared, and we hope to be able to have a conversation with you and continue it as this work continues to advance.
Yeah, Amy and Sharon, thank you so much. I really appreciate the work that you all are doing around deepening the collaborative capacity, both the language that we use around it, as well as being able to kind of spread the message and the actual impact, because it is, you know, it's what the Stewardship Network is all predicated upon fully. And as you did this work, was there anything that kind of surprised you about this? And
stop sharing your screen, Amy.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, so anything that surprised you, anything that that you were kind of those aha moments.
Whoops, I can't stop sharing. Can someone else do that?
Yep, let me see if I can do that. I'll do
Sorry.
that. And then I will stop sharing. And then I think we're good. Okay, great. Awesome. But yeah, so as you did this, you know, you dove deep into this, and you did a lot of analysis and a lot of talking with people in focus groups and surveys, and what kind of things were aha moments for you in looking at this?
I'll start. I think there were a number for me. I mean, one I somewhat shared as we were doing the presentation. The number of ways that you could begin to clearly see the relationship of collaborative capacity and discrete outcomes, and how collaboratives actually describe that. It was really interesting for me because I think in the field we have often talked about them separately, but especially in the Chesapeake Bay, perhaps because of the design of the grant, they were very interconnected in how they approach their work. I think another, for me, aha moment is this field of practice is evolving. The sophistication, the approach, the evolution of how we think about governance structures. I mean, I think a lot about this is a form of governance structure.
Right.
And as we shared, it's an organizational model too. How we're employing and adapting it to achieve really complex needs is remarkable. I mean, and again, we're seeing it across the country. And I think when you're working in one state, I work in California, you don't often lift your head up to see what's around and what can be transferred. So anyway, those are just a couple for me.
That's great. Amy, anything that you want to share with that?
I think the two things that really kind of stood out for me is the role that these grant programs played in helping create practitioner networks. So for the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, they really, through their grant program, they were able to kind of create this organic practitioner network, which was pretty incredible because now they're able to share information with each other, which really illustrates the relational component, as well as the Network for Landscape Conservation. They had a peer learning program. And through that peer learning program, they also actually created a practitioner network across the entire nation. So for me, one of the big ahas was just the role that the grant programs are playing in terms of creating these networks for practitioners where they're able to share information and best practices.
Yeah, that's great. We've been part of a few of those in the past as the Stewardship Network, as our own 501c3. And it is just amazing. I mean, it's the whole premise of the Stewardship Network, and all of you all online here today with us is the chance to learn from each other. And like you said, once you know what you have to offer or what you need, you can start to share resources in a way that was not possible without that connectivity and trust in those relationships. Where do you think the future of collaborative conservation is going? What do you think? What do you think these evaluations, because this is, to our knowledge, I think these are the first evaluations of this type of funding that we know of. Is that correct?
That we know of. Yes. I mean, when you're looking at that marriage of the two and looking specifically at the impacts that it yields.
Yeah.
So where do we think it's going? I mean, that's a big question, Lisa. We have how long?
Right?
9 minutes?
I mean, exactly. I know. And this is the work that we're all doing together, right? We're trying to chart the course for this. And I think that, the challenge that we have are these wicked problems that require this kind of cross-boundary collaborative thinking and collaborative problem solving.
I mean, I think we're already seeing some of that evolution. I think that locally led, locally supported solutions that can be scaled to the right scale, right as I use that term lightly, that helps address the problem or the opportunity that the communities are seeking to address. And these is the approach I think that we're going to see more and more, not so much a top-down, but really kind of locally led, because that's where the relevance, the investment, the durability comes from. I also think that we are recognizing that we need to really embrace broad perspectives, because broad perspectives yield creativity. And they also engage more individuals into the solution making and the sustaining of the work. So I mean, I also think that we've shifted from more traditional conservation to more active land management and long-term care and stewardship. I've spoken about this for years, that shift, and it's not just a one or the other, there's a continuum in between. We're seeing now not so much like it's the why we need to do this or it's just the protection. It's like, how do we undertake long-term active management? How do we fund it? Who do we involve? What perspectives? How does it vary? So these are big questions, and I feel like the way to help address them is through this shared dialogue, through these. It's going to take unlikely actors to probably bring solutions that we can't even see. As a restoration ecologist, that's my training. What I understood 40 years ago has completely changed. We don't look to a postage stamp replication approach. We're looking at function, process, dynamic systems, collaborative across landscapes or sectors. So yeah, I'm excited to be a part of this time. Some people say it's daunting. I think it's daunting, but it's also incredibly exciting.
I think it's incredibly exciting too. And one of the things that the Stewardship Network, with our more than, getting on 30 years of kind of since we've been doing this work, the other thing that I think that I see with the collaboratives that happens over time is, you talked about the durability, but that knowledge transfer, that it gets to stay there even with the kind of succession with some of the people retiring because of that collaborative. So I don't know if you saw any of that, and if there were any differences that you noticed between the NIFWIF and NLC. And a big shout out to both of those groups for not only engaging in the work that they're doing to fund these collaboratives, but also to taking the time and the resources to evaluate the impact of them.
Amy, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah.
Sure. So, I mean, the main differences between the two was that one was smaller, the Network for Landscape Conservation's Catalyst Fund, and it really there was also an emphasis on the individual capacity building through the peer learning, which was kind of an interesting way to couple both investments in collaborative capacity as well as individuals' capacity. And there was value in that, absolutely. And it did better position these collaboratives to be able to do their work on the ground. And mind you, also the $25,000 is certainly less than NIFWIF, which was granting a much larger amount, $1 million over 3 years, which really did enable. So it didn't just
Amazing.
position them; it actually enabled them to get those to achieve those on the ground outcomes that the main core purpose for so many of the collaboratives that are out there.
Yeah, that's great. And one of the things that the Stewardship Network is also doing is working on changing the architecture of funding for stewardship and for collaboratives, and seeing if we really can shift that dynamic, because we see the same thing that you found in these evaluations. And then Amy and Sharon, also a huge shout out to you. I know that when you first did the partnership impact model, one of the things that gave me a framework and language to talk about something that was already inherent in that. And so thank you both again for this next layer on the collaborative capacity piece, because I think it will give those of us who are working in this field again another framework and another set of language around that. So what do you think? Is it worth funding this stuff?
Well, I'll offer one thought. Yes, it is, absolutely. And I think that what this, to me, being able to do this through quantitative analysis and qualitative research, it reaffirms that when we speak about collaborative stewardship and conservation, and when we seek to fund, to resource, to advance those actions, we should not be timid or worried about the coupling of the two.
Yeah.
They are essential. It's like trying to run an organization without any capacities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we're trying to do, to your point, Lisa, is bring language, demonstrate through research and analysis the relationship, the correlation between these, and how they are investments that are one in the same, and not necessarily you need to say I'm only doing this or I'm only doing that, because that's just not how it works.
Right. Well,
And I was just going to underscore what Sharon said, that I'm, as a business professor and organizational scholar, I just want to say that that this is a special type of organization, and nobody would think that you could run a for-profit or nonprofit without capacity. So it's the same exact thing.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, Sharon and Amy, not only professional colleagues, but dear friends. The three of us could talk about this for a long time. And I want to thank all of you online for joining us today for the Stewardship Network's monthly webcast. I want to just put a little wrap on this. That said, Sharon and Amy, any final thoughts or comments that you want to make?
Reach out if you have questions.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time today.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Great. So I want to again thank you all online for being part of the Stewardship Network's monthly webcast. We do these on each and every second Wednesday of the month, as we have done for decades. During the Eastern Time Zone's noon hour, Sharon and Amy are 9 to 10 in the morning on the West Coast. And so encourage you all to sign up for them. Go to stewardshipnetwork.org/webcast. You'll find the upcoming webcasts. We're scheduled out through almost all of 2026. We'll be talking about using plants to control buckthorn with Mike Schuster in November from the University of Minnesota. We'll be talking about cultivating conservation capacity, growth, and change at the Kalamazoo Nature Center, one of the early nature centers in the country, in December. In January, we'll be talking about the ecology of red-headed woodpeckers and a threatened ecosystems, insights from a long-term investigation in oak savannas. As we said, the research component of this in all aspects of it is so important for us to disseminate. Thank you all online for the work that you do. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. I look forward to seeing many of you in person in January. And in the meantime, don't hesitate to reach out. Our door is always open. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much.